What Ali did here is exactly what I think she should have done in her predicament. She knew her limitations and she knew her strengths. She knows she's not very well versed enough in Greek to take on the issue of what Arsenokoitai does or doesn't mean, and she sticks to the issue at hand. This is excellent dialogue and debate strategy on display right here. Too often, what I find is that people can't read Greek and Hebrew themselves, and so when those they're talking with bring up the terms in those languages, whether that's on the issue in regards to something like this with homosexuality in the Bible, or say a Jehovah's Witness shows up at your door and he's bringing up John 1:1 and the grammar and the syntax there or something, this comes up and we let that become a distraction. It's not always the case, but far too often both parties who are often privy to this kind of tactic aren't overly well competent in the biblical languages, and it becomes a game of one-upmanship. One person knows the Greek term off the top of their head, and they can reference it in the moment. That doesn't necessarily mean that they can read or understand ancient Greek, but they can recall the term, and they're pretty sure the person they're dialoguing with doesn't. And so it's just used as some sort of rhetorical gotcha in the course of the conversation.
It's like a flex.
However, I, as someone who does read Greek and Hebrew, I want to tackle this issue
the ultra
in
flex.
the original languages in order to help those who don't know how to potentially navigate through those types of accusations when those come up. So, first, let's get the terms referenced in this particular clip addressed. Paul, who's discussing with Ali, brings up Leviticus 18:22, but then says that the word used in the Old Testament to talk about male-on-male relationships is kadeshim. But this word doesn't appear in Leviticus 22:18. In the prohibition, you shall not lie with a male as one lies with a female. That's the phrase there in the Hebrew, ve'et zachar lo tishkav mishkaveh isa toiva hi. The word kadeshim that Paul mentions isn't found there. In fact, not only is it absent from both Leviticus 18:22 and Leviticus 20 verses 13, which are the two prohibitions related to homosexual relationships in that book, I couldn't find its presence anywhere in the entire book of Leviticus. Now, it is found in the Torah more broadly in Deuteronomy 23:17, but that relates to cultic prostitution specifically. The assertion from Paul to Ali was that this was the word in the Old Testament to talk about male-on-male relationships, and that's just incorrect. Okay.
Love it.
Paul then brings up two other words, Greek ones, Arsenokoitai and Malakoi. These are the two words found in 1 Corinthians 6:9.
Okay,
Pause
that's,
real
what
fast.
that's what we were just looking at.
Earlier in the video, he mentions that he's talking about the Paul that is debating Ali Beth Stuckey, not Paul the Apostle.
Not Paul the Apostle who
But
wrote
we
1 Corinthians.
We skipped that part. So,
Right.
all
Good-
let's-
good note,
let's
good
jump
note.
back in.
Renders this clause in the Greek, men who have sex with men. The ESV says men who practice homosexuality, and the LSB follows the more literalistic reading of nor effeminate nor homosexuals. So, let's break this down. The Apostle Paul, not to be confused with the Paul who's talking with Ali Beth Stuckey. I'll try to differentiate those two as much as possible by calling the biblical Paul the Apostle. The Apostle Paul is giving a prohibition list in 1 Corinthians 6, and he uses the Greek ute Malakoi, ute Arsenokoitai. There are two words there that are in context, and it's relevant to recognize that the Apostle Paul is playing off of the Greek translation of Leviticus 18:22 here. In Leviticus 18:22, in the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, it says, kai meta arsenos, ou koi methese, koitein gunekos. And
Good
you will
grief.
not lie with a man as with a woman. Arsenokoitai is a compound word. It takes two terms, arsen, meaning male, and koite, meaning lie with in bed. And Koite has a very strong sexual connotation to it. It's not just talking about going physically horizontal in a bed. It means to go to bed to have sex. Arsenokoitai is a very descriptive term because it's formulated directly.
Do you have anything you want to say about this so far?
Something's wrong with our OBS.
You hate it when technology goes wrong.
Yeah.
That's like one of your biggest pet peeves.
Yes. But usually the answer is to turn it off and turn it back on. But in the case of a live stream, you can't.
I think that I have seen what he is talking about definitely play out. Is that kid doesn't know Greek. He doesn't know how to speak Greek. He had somebody else tell him what the Greek means. And now since he memorized the phrase, he can and feel like he's got power over it, feel like he's got the right answer on it. But here you have the master himself, the apologetics master.
I think Wes Huff is a good example of when power combines with right motive.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's approaching this, he's not trying to dunk on the Paul kid.
No.
Right.
Because he knows that if he started to, it just...
Yeah, but he is like, it's the ultimate form of dunking whenever you don't have to like, hey, I'm not here to like, try to own you or anything.
I'm just here to set the record straight.
I'm just going to set it straight. Like, it's like dad mode, dad mode coming in. Whereas you can tell, and, maybe it's the debate show or just things going on in the kid's life, but he's like really trying to stick it to her, get his...
It is funny moment. How the motivation makes all the difference.
Right.
How much it doesn't. Well, I had a friend tell me, it doesn't matter how much you know. It only matters. Nobody cares how much you know. They only. Oh gosh, you say it.
I don't know what you're saying.
Nobody cares how much you know. They just want to know that you care. Mm-hmm. That's what it is.
That's
and
true.
You can see that from Wes Huff. Once they know that you care. Then they care what you know.
Yeah.
But that kid has got it.
Well, that's the best thing about Wes is like there's a what's his name? What was the Billy Carson? There's a pre-Billy Carson Wes and there's a post-Billy Carson Wes. And all it did to Wes was like give him more resources to just be the guy that he is.
Yeah, he's the same guy before and after.
Right, because before...
Fundamentally the same.
Yeah, exactly. But now he just has, I feel like, a little bit of a spark and a little bit of more confidence because he's got more people paying attention.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, here's what I've been, like, deep... And I think that's, and maybe we're not flowing today, but... I think that is something to keep in mind just when we think about how to go about our lives is like, it wasn't him trying to get all the subscribers, but it was him putting in the work.
Quiet years in the background.
Exactly. Yeah. To where he can deliver. Like, he's Wes Huff.
Yeah.
Right?
Now.
Right. And
he wasn't Wes Huff when he was studying.
But that has nothing to do with the subscribers.
Yes.
He's Wes Huff.
Yeah.
Regardless. And the reason he's Wes Huff is not because he worked really hard to build a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
He's Wes Huff because he worked really hard to
be an expert.
Yeah, exactly. So,
all right, are we fixed? Can we listen to him explain what this means? All right.
Those familiar with the Torah in the first century Corinthian setting would have been reading their Bible, the Old Testament, in Greek, and they would have known exactly what is happening with what Paul is doing. Leviticus 18:22 is in direct view. Now, Paul in the video refers to the earliest usage of Arsenokoitai as a term for economic exploitation of men. The only place where this could possibly be drawn from is in a transliteration of a possible use of a term from a Sabine Oracle translation by an individual named J.J. Collins. However, there are two pretty big issues with this. First, it's not clear that Arsenokoitai is the word that's actually found in the text of the Sabelline Oracle. And second, in order to make the citation fit the hypothesis that Arsenokoitain is economically exploitative sex, you have to posit that the other phrases, do not betray information and do not murder, deal with economic exploitation too. And that's nothing more than patent special pleading. What is clear and is pretty widely agreed upon throughout the scholarship is that the Apostle Paul is almost certainly coining the term here. He's combining the two words in Greek found in Leviticus to create a new term, a term that would have been obvious to its original audience, and its meaning would have been clear. Paul, in the surrounded video, says that there were other ancient Greek words used for homosexuality, and asks Ali the question, why doesn't the Apostle Paul, why wouldn't he have used them?
He nailed it. There you go. And that's okay. So I think that I'm going to finish his thought for him, which basically was like, why wouldn't you use another more well-known term? Because Paul is not coming from primarily, first and foremost, a Greek worldview. Paul is coming primarily, first and foremost, from a biblical worldview, from a Hebrew worldview. And so when he reaches for a term like this, he's not going to reach first to the entire Greek lexicon that he does presumably have at his disposal, but instead he's going to reach for this thing that has been trained in him from the book of Leviticus. From Hebrew, yes, but also from the Septuagint translation. So when apparently what Wes Huff is describing is Paul makes up this word on the spot. So he doesn't make this word up. He doesn't reach through the lexicon to find a word that he can use. He makes up a word straight out of Leviticus 18:22, which, one, is contrary to what the kid from the thing said, is that it doesn't have the Hebrew word for what you would expect a homosexual act or a homosexual person. It just says a man who lies with a man as with a woman.